I was all about business 24/7 because I had no distractions because I wasn't drinking or doing drugs. So I kind of look at it as it was kind of like this thing that was meant to happen because it enabled me to work twice as hard as everyone else.
The Fred Minnick Show is brought to you by The Beeline, Michter's, and 291 Colorado Whiskey.
And joining the Fred Minnick Show on the Beeline hotline is the one, the only Scott Ian. Go to findyoursippingpoint.com to check out the bars in northern Kentucky. Scott Ian of Anthrax, how you doing, my friend?
Good, Fred. How are you?
I could be a lot better. I could be like at a festival right now watching you on stage, crushing it. But, other than that, I'm great. I mean, this is you are a musician who loves the stage. You love to perform in front of your fans. What's this year been like for you?
I mean, weird, obviously. That's kind of an understatement. But at the same time, we didn't have that much scheduled for this year as far as touring goes. It was going to be an off year for us because we were going in. Basically, we finished our touring cycle for the last record last November of 19. Mm-hmm. So we were going to be working on a record this year. We did have some festival shows, Europe in the summer, and some one-offs here in the States throughout the year. But in total, maybe 25 shows. So, we're lucky in that aspect. I know a lot of guys in bands that literally had records come out and had a year and a half of dates lined up, and they all got thrown in the garbage. So, for us, it didn't really change that much what we were doing this year. So, I mean, we're just lucky in that. And if there's any silver lining to this, I've gotten to be home since March with my family. I never could have electively just said, I'm taking all this time off. And, of course, if I could trade that for no pandemic, I would, but it's not up to me.
Yeah. And of course, you've gotten to play with your wife a lot, and that's had to be awesome.
Yeah, even the thing we did for your repeal day, just Pearl and myself and Jim getting together and playing those songs acoustically felt so good, just to make music with other people. And that's one of those things you don't miss it till it's gone. Well, it's totally true.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I am itching to get out and play shows again at some point for sure.
Well, my instrument is whiskey. So,
yes.
my talent, we share an agency. We both are represented by TKO, the talent agency, and they actually represent people who with real talent. My talent is drinking whiskey with people. So,
well, I would say then you have absolutely got life by the balls if you were able to make that. That is because that's your job, and that's the best.
That's what I do. I love it. So we're going to start off with a little Maker's Mark 101.
Yes, I got my little sample, my little cough medicine bottle right here.
Right on. It's for medicinal purposes.
Yes.
So I could tell you needed a little bit there. My goodness, I gave myself a healthy pour there.
Yeah. Can I see the bottle? Can I see the bottle?
Yeah.
So what's the story with this Maker's 101?
So Maker's Mark is they have this is like a distillery only release, but this is like 11 proof points higher than their other one. Their other one is 90 proof, and they've kind of been really hell bent on just their ordinary release, and then they've started coming out with some different releases like Maker's 46.
Yeah, the 46, right.
And they've got like a private selection thing. So they do a lot of tinkering with staves. And then they used to have this product that was a black wax.
I have one.
You got a black wax?
Yeah,
Nice.
I bought it in Japan ages ago.
Yeah, so that's like that one's money, man. So if you still have that, that's like
I
it's like
do.
sipping on a little bit of heaven right there. Those
Yeah,
older makers are great.
I've never opened it. We were in Japan, I saw it, and I was like, "What is this black wax?" Because I could just give you a little background on my whiskey history. I didn't start. I didn't have the first whiskey I ever had was a Jack and Coke with Lemmy in 1985 at a bar in London where I bumped into him. He's my hero, and I bumped into him in a bar, and I didn't even drink at the time. I was 21. I didn't drink. And I saw Lemmy, and I offered to buy him a drink. And he said, "You're in my town. I'll buy you a drink. What are you having?" And I didn't even know how to answer that question. So I just said, "I'll have whatever you're having." And he was drinking Jack and Coke. And so all of a sudden I've got a whiskey in front of me, and I'm worried that I'm going to like throw up on his white boots and get fired from heavy metal. And
Well, it's a gateway for a lot of people, but not everybody can have their first have their whiskey indoctrination with Lemmy. That's awesome. And
it was awesome, and it was horrible. And 6 months later, we played our first ever headlining gig in London, and he was there backstage, and he's saying hi to everybody, and he looks at me and he's like, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "You remember me?" And he said, "Yeah, I met you at the guy. I can't remember the name of the bar right now. Anyway, I met the St. Moritz." He said, "I met you at the St. Moritz. It's not as fancy as it sounds. It was like a dank basement in London." And he said, "And we were drinking, and at some point you stopped speaking English." And I said, "I hope I didn't do anything to offend you." He said, "No, I just couldn't understand what you were saying to me, and then you ran out of the bar." And he said, "I figured you weren't feeling so good." And I said, "Yeah, I wasn't that much of a drinker." He's like, "Yeah, I could tell."
Yeah, and he was, and of course he's like a champion. He was like the
Yes.
he was like the liver of the gods, and
Yes.
known for drinking his Jack Daniels. So, well, I unfortunately I don't have a Jack to toast Lemmy, but let's raise a little glass of the makers here for Lemmy, because
Sure.
he's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely got a little more heat than a regular makers. Because once in a while I'll just have a makers, and much like Jameson's, I find like it's obvious. It's like almost like drinking water. Sometimes it's so easy to drink.
Yeah, and this is the only, everything else I sent you are barrel finishes. So this is the only one that is like a traditional bourbon. And in fact, Maker's Mark, like if we were to turn back the clock and travel back to 1956, Maker's Mark is one of the very few bourbons that would be on the shelf today and still be bourbon. Because it goes into the barrel at a low entry proof of 110, and they changed that law in 1962.
Right.
And essentially, now everybody goes in the barrel at 125 proof or 120, and Maker's is one of the few that does not. So, it's a old school bourbon, man.
Yeah, and was it? I don't know if it was in the '90s or when it was, but wasn't Dave Pickerel the guy that kind of brought Maker's Mark kind of back from, like, I had never heard of it, and then suddenly there was this bottle everywhere with red wax, and I started drinking it.
So Dave Pickerel was a master distiller for Maker's. I'd say the guy that the Maker's Mark has never necessarily been about the master distiller. They've been a little bit more about, the Samuels family, which is the founders of it.
Sure.
And Bill Samuels Jr. is the kind of like this kind of eclectic, he would wear a pink suit and a purple wig to a party. He
Nice.
did things like, when they were in the market, they used to take out newspaper ads, to target Jack Daniels fans, and they found a guy in the South whose name was Jack Daniel, and they paid him some money and dressed him up like the Jack Daniels character, and said, "Hey, look, everybody! Jack Daniels drinks Maker's Mark," and he did another thing where he hired the Jack Daniel band, and he invited for a Kentucky Derby party, and he invited the CEO of Brown-Forman over to the party, and he didn't tell him. He's like, "Hey, Owsley, I want you to see my band tonight." And it was the Jack, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, we're the Jack Daniels band." And after that party, Owsley Brown went to his team and said, "Will somebody please create a bourbon to get Maker's Mark and Bill Samuels off of Jack Daniels' ass?" And that was the motivation to create Woodford Reserve. My high school principal was I was listening to some Anthrax in high school, and my high school principal came up to me and said I was going to be going to hell if I kept listening to Anthrax. And
I'm glad we were able to offend people that way, even though that was really obviously not who we were and never our intent. But the fact that people would get that from our music just because it sounded a certain way, I'll take it. I'm happy to accept that.
And if you listen to it, I mean, it is. I mean, I feel like hard rock, heavy metal is a little bit like some heavier like classical music from like the 1600s to 1800s. It's got that same kind of like feel to it, and I just feel like people get heavy metal and hard rock all wrong. And I go back to my principal, who also by the way, he smashed an Easy E tape with his paddle. So I mean, I was on his shit list when it came to music. But I just get a sense that, especially back in the 90s, heavy metal just got a really, really bad rap in like the mainstream culture.
Right. Yeah. Or even more so in the 80s when you had the PMRC, Tipper Gore and Housewives who decided that, we were dangerous for the youth of America. And that's when Dee Snider and Frank Zappa went to Capitol Hill and testified in front of Congress and all that because they wanted to put warning stickers on albums, that whole thing. And the best part about it is at the end of the day, there was some compromise made and the labels decided they would put content warning stickers on records. And that enabled us to sell more albums because every kid wanted the record with a content warning on it. So thank you, social justice warriors, for enabling us to sell more records to kids that you were trying to, protect them from us. They bought more of them.
So let's now move into the next products here. Now, the next series that we have, they're all finished in barrels. I've got an Angel's Envy cellar collection. This is finished in a Tawny port. I've got a Barrell Bourbon whiskey finished in Pear, Brandy, and Sicilian Amaro cask, which that's gonna be fast. This will be the first time I've tasted it. Is with you actually.
That's the Barrell one.
Yeah, that's the Barrel one.
Cool. And I've had a couple of bourbons in there. I liked everything I've had.
They do a great job. Mm-hmm. And this is Spirits of French Lick. This is a high rye bourbon finished in port wine. And by the way, Alan Bishop, who was the distiller here, is a huge fan. So just thought I'd tell you that. He's nice. He's a big rock fan. So let's start there. Let's start with the Spirits of French Lick. This is
French Lick, Indiana, the home of Larry Bird.
Unpretentious is what it's called. Larry Bird. Yeah, he just had a birthday.
I want to say Don Mattingly might be from there too, the baseball player. I think they were from the same town.
Well, I know Don Mattingly's daughter lives in Louisville.
Ah, okay.
So she's around here every now and then.
All right, Unpretentious High Rye. See what this is all about.
This is, obviously people think of Kentucky for bourbon, But Indiana's making a lot of really good bourbon right now, and Spirits of French Lick is a distillery I think people should keep an eye on.
Cool. I'll have to. What was his name? Alan Bishop. You have to put me in touch with him. Maybe him and I could trade some Anthrax for some rye.
I think he'd go for that. Maybe get your own barrel, because you all did a barrel. You did a barrel with Hill Rock.
We've done 3 barrels with Hill Rock. We did the first one was the Solera bourbon, which we call the Healer, and then we did Evil Twin 1, which was their double cask rye, and now Evil Twin 2 actually comes out next week because. Well, let me taste this first, then I'll tell the story after.
Yeah, like I'm in the zone right now. I can't get to it yet.
Oh, that's nice. Real easy, like not the normal. Like it doesn't have that super like. It's got rye spice, but it doesn't have like that real like kind of burn on the back of my tongue or. Like it's real approachable and it's really nice. Unpretentious.
Yeah, that's right. What I like about this is that it's got like you said, it's got like this flash of a spice.
Yeah.
And then all of the sweetness comes on, there's like this like cadre of sweetness just coming in after the spice.
Mm. Yeah, I'm getting like maple and vanilla. And let's see, one more taste. That's damn good. I gotta say, what does that retail for? Do you know?
I think it's sold out, but I know it's. I've seen it on the secondary market for a few hundred to 1,000 before.
Oh wow! So
yeah.
This is. Oh, we're talking high end hooch. I thought this is like a $30 bottle or something. Well, wow, this is amazing.
he does have some like $40 bottles that are really good. This was one of those like anomaly one of those releases that you didn't see coming, and that it like really exploded, and it had like an enormous demand on it. Like this is one of those where I see it and. I'm in love with it, but all of these people like found it like long before like critics fell in love with it. So 6 months before I ever tasted this stuff, it was already sold out and demand on the secondary market and everything. I was just like, I mean, it's kind of it doesn't happen very often, but that does happen with the way bourbon is right now. They can like these like products like this particular one. There's another one I can think of from a few years ago called Michter. That was an MGP source whiskey. It had one of those cluster craziness to it, and then the difference between this and that Michter is that Alan distilled this. So that's why I'm so in love with this distillery. Is that they're doing all their own stuff. They're doing unique mash bills with various grains and finishes, and he's also an absinthe maker. So like he's playing around with some absinthe, and he can make brandy. And he used to distill with Popcorn Sutton once upon a time. I do not know if they were finished in Tawny or I don't know what type of port barrel, but I'm pretty sure it was probably a ruby port. And the mash bill is 55% corn, 35% rye, which is supremely high, and 10% malt, non-chill filtered, and coming in at 106 proof. So packing just a little heat.
Very good.
What's interesting about this, Scott, is that a lot of times a port barrel will overpower a whiskey. So as we move on to the Angel's Envy, the Tawny port, I think we should do a side-by-side of these two. So I see you kicking that one back.
I got more. I have more.
You can do a side-by-side. It's all good.
I can. Look. See? I'm very prepared. It's weird. The camera's like opposite, or is
You
it
know,
just me?
On your end it is. On the recording, you're good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you're good on the recording.
All right. So I'm going to do Unpretentious in the one I just had.
And then Angel's Envy, Tawny Port.
Yes.
So what do you feel like the status of hard rock heavy metal is right now? I look at the genre as like I feel like there's a lot of collaborations going on. There's a lot of people from the hip hop community coming over and wanting to get some of the heavy sounds, and you also see a little bit more of an alternative vibe. I'm just curious, what is your take right now on the mood of hard rock and heavy metal?
I mean, I think it's super healthy. As healthy as it's ever been. You can't judge things anymore by album sales because people buying physical, people buying CDs, vinyl. It isn't what it used to be, and the streaming numbers for hard rock and heavy metal don't come anywhere close to the streaming numbers of pop or rap. But as far as ticket sales go and going out on tour and all that, and just in general, look, we've been doing this a long time. And the fact that I can still do this now, next year will be our 40th year as a band. Wow. I can still do this now and, make a living at it all these decades later at a higher level than we did even in the 80s. So that to me, I guess, I can only judge it by the health of my bands, where my band is at professionally, and things are really good. So that to me is a good barometer for what's going on with hard rock and heavy metal in general. I think there's so many new bands in metal that have come through in like the last 10 years. And then of course you've got, the grandpas like us, and I was going to say Slayer, but they retired, but us and Megadeth and, Metallica, and even bands that I considered to be new bands like System of a Down or, there's so many, Lamb of God, all these guys who have now been around going on 20, 30 years. I think it's really healthy. There's always going to be a new generation of kids that are going to look for an alternative to what's on the radio or what's on the television. Mm-hmm. And that's hard rock and heavy metal. So, it's kind of like the death business. Funeral homes are never going to go out of business. I don't think guitar-based bands are ever going to go out of business.
I love that analogy. Actually, is there a younger band is there a new band that you've got your eye on that you think is like they've got the sound?
Yeah, we had this band on tour with us just a couple of years ago. They were called Code Orange, and they were opening the tour, and I hadn't heard of them before the tour, and I went out and watched them the first night, and I was completely blown away by their energy. I had never seen anything like as energetic and the aggression and the passion that this band was giving to the audience, and in front of an audience that I would say, at the time, 90% of the crowd didn't know who the hell they were. But they were hitting it so hard on that stage, they refused to be denied the audience, and they crushed and they won the audience over. And they've since kind of blown up since that tour, and they're doing really well. And I think they're a band that could go on because they're really pushing the boundaries musically too. They're not just a hardcore band, they're not just a metal band. They have so many other elements in their sound, and I think they could go on to, I think really at this point, do whatever they want for as long as they want, and that's a really great place to be creatively.
That's awesome. As we get into like the Angel's Envy a port barrel, I'll say that like this is a creative whiskey. Like you mentioned, creativity on the stage. The fact that these guys came out with and started finishing in port barrels in 2010 to 2013, which was when they were kind of formalizing the company. They did something that was pushing the boundaries because this category did not really exist in 2010. There was one like American whiskey barrel finish in the late 1990s, and it was by Booker Noah, Jim Beam, and it was a flop. I mean, today you find those bottles on the secondary market. There's 18-year-old Jim Beam Masterpiece finished in cognac barrels. They're $1,000, $2,000. Everybody wants them, but at that time, nobody wanted them. It was a huge flop.
Right.
And like now, everybody's doing these barrel finishes, and I think Angel's Envy deserves a lot of credit for everything that they have done to kind of propel the category because they were the first mainstay barrel finish. That said, I still don't like seeing bourbon on the label. Call me a purist, but bourbon, by definition, cannot go into used oak. So when I see bourbon finished in a X barrel, it just kind of irritates me a little bit. I love the category. I love the flavor profile of these.
Sure.
I would just prefer that we as an industry call them whiskey and not bourbon. That's
Got
all.
it.
And maybe the federal government changes the law. I don't know. Maybe they change that up, but and it has a special designation for these. But right now it's really loose, and what we're tasting here are going to be products of distilleries and bottlers that follow a code, not necessarily the rules, but they don't like go and dump a bunch of sugar additives in there. But people can get away with stuff like that in this category. So,
yeah, I've been reading quite a lot about that because we with Anthrax, we are in business with Hill Rock, and it's they do a lot of barrel finishes, and so I've been reading a lot about this, how distillers have been able to somehow get around the thing where they can still call it bourbon, even though it's essentially, if you want to, you get it down to brass tacks, it's not that.
Right. Yeah, and what they're able to do is there's a category in the federal government called the Distilled Spirit Specialty, where they are allowed to, go in under a distilled spirit specialty, and you can throw in anything in there. You can throw in a lot of things in there. In fact, if you wanted to filter, let's say you wanted to filter a Mexican whiskey through North Carolina gym socks and finish it in a a Curacao barrel, you could do that under the distilled spirit specialty clause. So
I will taste that. I'm in.
Hey, you're down for some gym sock whiskey.
Even just when you said Mexican whiskey, I was like, is there Mexican whiskey?
Oh yeah. There's a growing movement of Mexican whiskey in Oaxaca, which is where they make mezcal. At first,
sure, yeah.
At first, I didn't like it. I've tasted their second and third runs. They're getting better.
Cool. I got to check that out.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Mexican whiskey.
Now, the history of Mexican whiskey kind of collides with bourbon. They were making Mexican bourbon during Prohibition and after Prohibition. So Mexican bourbon was on the shelf for up until 1964 when bourbon became a unique product of the United States.
Okay.
And so when we did that, Mexico pretty much stopped making whiskey and focused on tequila. And I think Mexico, some of the best food in the world is in Mexico.
Yeah.
And some of the best beers in Mexico.
Yes.
And I'll be damned if I'd put tequila and great mezcal up against anything. You know,
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's my go-to whiskey and tequila and mezcal. That's my thing.
those are that.
And
I mean,
and
exactly.
Amaro and Amaro as well.
And
And
gin and
and beer
and
and
beer
gin and beer and gin
and wine
and wine.
well, shit, I just
Yeah.
like everything.
I've been in California for 30 years, so I go to Mexico I just I got to check out Mexican whiskey for sure.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I'll get a bottle sent to you.
that would be great. Angel's Envy, right? We're
Angel's
tasting
Envy.
that one first.
Cheers.
And the Angel's Envy was which finish again?
This is in a Tawny port.
Tawny port.
So
All right,
Tawny,
I'm going to write that on my bottle.
Tawny ports are the ones that have been aged a lot longer.
Yes, I'm a port drinker as well.
Have you been to Portugal and been to some bodegas?
I've been to Portugal many times, but I've never visited not a distiller, but a winery. I'm losing the words. A winery.
Winery. Yeah, I mean they are. I love port. You get a 40-year-old port, or you get like a vintage port from like the perfect year. I mean, sign me up and cancel work tomorrow because I'll drink the whole damn bottle. They're so good.
Even like Pearl and I, we were in upstate New York the last few months. You could peek your head in.
Hi, Pearl.
Hi, Fred.
Really great performance at Repeal Day Expo.
It's a great performance at Repeal Day Expo.
Oh man, thank you for having us. It was so fun.
You had a lot of people cheering for you in the Avatar world.
You had a lot of people cheering for you in the Avatar world. He said.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And
hold on.
Hi.
Okay.
There we are.
Hi. I'm still telling people about the fun time I had with you at Bourbon and Beyond. That was fun.
Oh, it was so great. It's too bad that we couldn't do it again, this year, obviously, but hopefully next year. So you had did you taste the Tawny one yet?
I tasted the Angel's Envy, and now I'm going to go back to the Unpretentious. I mean, the Angel's Envy it feels much lighter to me because it's a bourbon, right?
Yeah, it's also it's a bourbon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, compared. I mean, not that the Unpretentious is like some giant, single malt or something, but there's more going on with the Unpretentious. Definitely more complex, a little bit more heat. Although I do like the Angel's Envy, it's tastes great.
Yeah, what I think is fascinating to me about these two is that I can still taste the origins of the Unpretentious. Like I can still taste like the grains, and I can still taste like the bourbon without like the cask kind of taking over. Whereas with the Angel's Envy is a almost like a marriage of the two kind of coming into one, where it's unique. And I think this is a matter of preference with these barrel finishes. Because I still do lean toward wanting to taste the whiskey and the bourbon. I still want to taste that and not necessarily see a domination of the secondary barrel. Not that the Tawny port finish is in Angel's Envy is a domination, but I'm with you in that there's still just an element going on that is not there with the Angel's Envy.
I agree with you. Like with coffee, I drink my coffee black because I want to taste the bean that I'm drinking, and I do like other coffee drinks. Like sometimes I'll have something that has it's sweetened and it's got milk in it or something. But in general, my go-to in the morning is I drink black coffee, really good black coffee, but black coffee because I want to taste it, and I feel the same way about whiskey. I want to taste it. If it's got a finish, that's great too, and I have no problem with that. But I think if it really came down to it, I'm more of a purist, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I love that. So we are now going to taste the Barrell Armida, which I think I feel pretty confident in saying that this is the first time somebody has finished a whiskey in a pear, brandy, rum, and Sicilian Amaro cask.
I have never heard of that. I love pear brandy and I love Amaro. So let's see what's happening with this.
All right,
This
Scott,
one's going to go on this.
Is there a drink you don't like? I'll share mine if you share yours.
That I don't like. I don't think so. I've only ever gone off certain spirits because maybe at some point in my life I got a little too crazy with it, and then I had to step back for a little while, like gin in the early 90s, and I didn't drink for a long time. And same with tequila in the early 90s. And then I didn't drink it for a long time. I've got back on the horse with both of them years and years ago. No, I don't think there's a spirit or a drink I like certain ones better than others, but I don't have one that I'm like, oh no, I hate that. I can't drink it.
I only have one. And it's
vodka.
Really, you know it well. You know it's vodka. I love that.
I know because I follow you. I know.
And the reason why it's not because that the spirit truly, genuinely in my heart sucks. It's because of the business behind vodka and the history of vodka and what it did to bourbon in the 1960s and 1970s, taking it off the shelf. But really today, you go into a liquor store and you'll see stacks upon stacks of vodkas right there at the front. It's everywhere. It's like a sea of the stuff. That's because the vodka distiller is paying to have that placement. And the distributors will also tell the retailer, oh, you want this really highly allocated bottle of bourbon? You got to buy 60 cases of that vodka right there.
Wow. See, I didn't know that's how it worked. Wow.
And so that's like kind of one of the dirty secrets. And it's not really a secret. I mean, it's very discussed. It's very much discussed in little circles like this. But at the end, it just vodka is basically not. There's not a vodka magazine. You don't see vodka groups. I mean,
no.
Vodka is what it is. It is an intoxicant, and that's it. But I will say,
I agree.
I will say that if you are going to drink vodka, I would much rather see you buy vodka from a small distiller. That's it. Buy from a small distiller. Don't buy one of the big brands.
I could actually say it's probably the one drink I never drink vodka. I mean, I have in my life, of course, but I never drink it. I don't think I've had a vodka in years, just because. What is it? It just takes on the flavor of whatever. Who cares about drinking straight vodka? I don't need to just shoot vodka. And I don't really drink very sweet drinks or anything like that. I used to, sometimes I would have a dry vodka martini, but that was when I was off gin. And then when I got back into gin, I never had a vodka martini again. So I never drink vodka. That would be like 12th on my list to go to. Like literally if you walked into some place and they literally had beer and a bottle of vodka, I'd go beer first, but if they didn't have any beer left, I guess that's all I then I'd have no choice.
I mean, all right. So this, I would probably drink vodka over prisoner toilet wine, but that's about it. You know, that's about the only time.
Yeah.
I'm going that road.
Well, although what would you rather drink? Really shitty vodka or really shitty wine? Which would be lesser of two evils?
I would probably drink a basic vodka that's clean over a really shitty wine.
Because maybe there's probably less taste, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Like, I mean, I can
less flavor.
like really shitty wine, man, and it's also like bad wine. Man, it gives me a really bad headache the next day. You know,
well, yeah, of course.
Spirits don't give me headaches. I have like no. I think my body's impervious to like spirits, but like wine, you know, I have like a bad wine. I mean, I'll have a headache all day.
No headache with spirits is a very good superpower to have.
Like I said, it's my only talent.
I got so sick on Pop Off vodka on my 18th birthday, and that was in 1981, and that's basically why I didn't drink all through that time in my 20s, because I got alcohol poisoning on my 18th birthday on Pop Off vodka, and yeah, I didn't. Not only did I drink it, you know, even vodka took forever to ever have a vodka.
Did you have to go to the hospital?
Didn't go to the hospital, but I was in really bad shape for about 4 days. Like,
wow.
And it's not like it was my first time drinking. I grew up in New York City, so drinking age was 18 at the time, and you know, back then, and I had already started drinking probably when I was like 15. Mostly beer and vodka. That's when you drink what you drink when you're a kid. It's the easiest thing to get your hands on, and the most palatable, because vodka cranberry or vodka and orange juice, of course, screwdrivers, and so yeah, I really tore it up, and yeah, I was bad. My mother kept coming into my room, asking me what was wrong with me. She thought I just told her I had the flu. Like, basically, I just lied about it, and oh my God, it was so bad. I couldn't physically, like, I couldn't move for 4 days. I was destroyed. Like, it was bad.
Holy cow. Like, I mean,
yeah.
you had like, and I've heard about this before. I've heard of like people who drank so much, like their muscles seize. Is that what was happening to you? You were having like seizures in your muscles?
The party, my birthday is New Year's Eve, and I went to a party at my buddy's house.
Right, it's my son's birthday too. My son's born on New Year's Eve. Yeah, I love that.
I lived in an apartment building in Queens, and I went to my friend's house. I lived on the second floor, and my buddy was throwing a party on the first floor because his dad was out of town, so he had a whole bunch of people over, and yeah, I literally crawled. I had to crawl up the stairs, like down the hall, up the stairs into my house, because I had left the door open. You could push this little thing to leave the door open. And then it was 4 days of agony, fevers, chills. Like, I couldn't eat. I mean, I'm not exaggerating if I was to say I might've drank like, easily a half gallon of that crap. It was in the big plastic like thing with a handle on it. It was so bad.
I mean, that's the kind of like that's the kind of like Russian type of drinking that we lose people. So thank God you're okay. I mean, the fact that you're able to you're like reciting this and like you're still feeling it in your bones. I mean, it was bad.
But what's amazing is, because of that experience, through all the formative years of the band, I was stone cold sober. And I think that really gave me a leg up on what was going on, because I know so many people who weren't.
Yeah.
And I was all about business 24/7 because I had no distractions, because I wasn't drinking or doing drugs. So I kind of look at it as it was kind of like this thing that was meant to happen because it enabled me to work twice as hard as everyone else after the fact.
That's a really good point. And, it's kind of like, when kids wanted to smoke and they would steal their parents' smokes. And some parents, like my grandpa with my dad, said, "Oh, you want to smoke? Smoke the whole pack right now." Right. I mean,
right.
It's that kind of you get overexposed to something. You're like, oh, fuck, I don't want to taste that shit again. So we got to taste this Armida, this Barrell Armida here. I've already snuck a taste in, and I'm just gonna say that it is different.
Ooh, that's got some heat.
112 proof.
Yeah, it's. I do like it. If I was going to compare it to a guitar tone, which I know this probably will only make sense in my brain, but it's got a lot of mid-range. And I know that doesn't make sense, but to maybe someone who doesn't play guitar with my type of sound, but yeah, I don't know.
To me, that pear brandy finish is like dominating this thing.
Yeah. There's kind of like there's a bit of that on the finish on the end of this that I'm getting that. Like, I don't know. I would have one. I don't know that I would want 3 of these.
It's like a backhanded like compliment of.
I know it is. I know.
Oh.
Look, I'm not spitting it back in the glass. You know what I mean? But
that's a good. But
it's
it's not feeling balanced for me. I'll tell you. And the folks at Barrell Bourbon are dear friends of mine.
Oh, they do great things.
They do
I love
great
Barrell
stuff. I just feel like this pear brandy was a little too aggressive on here, and
right.
And I'm not getting any of the bitterness that I want to see from the Amaro, and I'm certainly not detecting any like molasses from the rum. I'm not detecting. I mean, it's like the pear brandy just like came in and kicked those other 2 barrels just right out of the park, and
especially because that's what I'm getting on the finish. So it's kind of like. That's what's staying with me is just this overwhelming pear brandy thing.
Huh. Yeah. And the nose too. The nose is a little, it's all over the place, but I do think that this is one that I think at another setting, I might like it more. I don't know. I'm not giving up on it. I'm not giving up.
No, I wouldn't either.
This might be one. The Northern Lights are coming. There could be like this spatial thing happening to us right now, where pairs aligned with that star. I mean, who the fuck knows?
Or you know what? Maybe this is something like you have after dinner with like dessert, like when you're eating like a really delicious piece of pie.
Oh my God! Well,
I don't know.
I mean, that sounds great. That sounds great. I will say too, like I do believe, like as a taster, I believe in tasting 3 times before you kind of give like a final thought on something, because you don't want to. Because it's kind of like inevitably you're gonna play beautiful one night and hit every note and just crush it, and I'm sure there's been a time that you were like, I'd like to have that performance back. And it's very much the same with like tasting. This is like, it's just an extension of your body. It's like instead of like running or playing, it's taste. And
Yes.
your taste and your perceptions will change from day to day. But the fact that both of us were turned off by it first taste is a sign to me. But
I mean, I still have, obviously, I've still got, I'm going to go back to this. I'm not, I will taste this again. And I've got some friends coming over on Saturday who who also appreciate whiskey. And I'm going to have them check it out too and see what they think.
all right, so now is the fun time where we get to decide our favorite of the episode here. And
what about the Misters and the Colorado whiskey?
Oh, have you
just sent me those?
Yeah, no, you know what? They're not on my tasting thing, but let me grab those. Which Colorado whiskey did I send you? Was it
I've got
291?
the
Okay,
E, yeah.
E.
Yeah.
Great, E.
Which,
all right.
as you can see, I've already dipped into, and I'm liking it.
Oh,
I bought this when it was like, I don't know, $90 at Vendome here in Los Angeles a million years ago.
Yeah, you can't get it for that anymore.
No, I know. And I don't know when I'm going to open it. Someday, I guess. I've had it because I used to buy it kind of regular, not knowing that, maybe I should like buy 50 of these and hold on to them.
Well, if I'd have known you were a Pappy fan, I would have sent you some.
I am.
All right.
And Willet and what's the other one I'm totally drawing a blank on right now. Anyway, I'll think of it. Are you a single malt guy at all?
I love single malts. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I love single malts. In fact, I did a Glenmorangie tasting tonight for a company called App Dynamics, and it was awesome. It was great.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a pretty decent single malt collection.
Man, I'm loving this. I'm learning a lot about you tonight.
What? Oh yeah. Pearl's dad, like years ago, every year on my birthday, he would give me like either a bottle of Macallan 18 or 25. So I've still got some of that stuff because we used to drink it.
Did you ever play with him?
With Meatloaf?
Yeah,
I've gotten on stage. A couple of times, like on tour, because I would just go out on tour with Pearl and have me up, jam along on something. Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yep,
I love that. I know he's got a lot of Kentucky ties. I know he's out here a lot, and I've got a couple friends who are close to him, and they're always talking about like when he comes into town, like I should interview him. I was like, I'd love to, and it was going to happen in person, and then COVID happened. But you know how that world. It's a story of our lives right now, pre-COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, Pearl's sister lives in Lexington.
That's it. That's why why he's always in town. That's great.
Yeah.
So. I'll be following up with like a care package for you for some stuff, but let's start with the Michters. Let's go back to the drawing board here a little bit.
I pronounced it wrong. I said Misters.
Michters, it doesn't matter. It's whiskey. So it gets its name because the founder of this company, when it was like when it was a Pennsylvania distiller, and they basically, it was Bombergers, Shanks. They had all these different names, and this guy came in ownership of the distillery that had been in existence since arguably, I mean, I say arguably, 1753. and he wanted to create a product after his two kids, and his kids were named Michael and Peter, and so he named the first part of it after Michael, and the
Okay.
second part after Peter. So people are always like Michter's. Oh, that's an interesting name. Is that German? Like, no, it comes from
Right. Okay.
like two kids. So
Right.
I think that's it's one of my favorite stories in whiskey. Now that his name was Lee Foreman, and that company, as he owned it, basically died in the late 1980s. A new company came in and acquired the trademarks. They brought him over into Kentucky and started filling it up with, putting Kentucky product in there, and now they have their own distillery in Kentucky. And Michter's they're just doing such great work, distilling wise. So here we go.
I mean,
you've already crushed this bottle.
yeah, I feel like this is just I don't know much about, like, I know they've got some very kind of more expensive high-end stuff because I see it on the shelves. But this feels like just a kind of more of an everyday,
Exactly. Yeah, this is a $40 price point. Super approachable.
And great for the price point. Great. I mean, no ice, no water, no nothing, and could just easy peasy. And it tastes good.
It does. It does. Now,
Really nice.
are you taking this over the Maker's Mark?
I am taking this over the Maker's Mark. Yeah.
All right.
Thinking about that. Yes, I am.
So those are the two like traditional bourbons. And by the way, Michter's would be bourbon 2 in 1956. They go in the barrel at 103 proof.
Right.
But so you're taking Michter's over Maker's Mark, and now we've got the Colorado whiskey finished in aspen staves. So this is a whiskey finished with aspen wood. And I think you've been hitting this bottle a little bit too.
I have, just because, I think Pearl brought a bottle of this home from Bourbon and Beyond, I think, that you had given her. And we had gone, I don't know if it was this same one, but it was the same distillery, the Colorado whiskey. And fast work of that back then. So when you sent me this, I was like, ooh, let's check this out. And yeah, I'm digging it.
I love it. Now both oh shit. We just had a glass go down on my end. My little desk is bulging. I need it didn't hit any electronics, so that's all I care about. We're good.
Yeah.
Which, how many wires it takes to produce just like one little bitty thing like this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like how do you get in that business? Like how do you like become the guy that figures out what wires need to go into what? Because I mean, that's like you go backstage at a festival. I mean, there'd be like wires like that big.
I know.
All over the place.
I don't know how any of that works. I still don't understand how the fact that with my right hand I hold a guitar pick and I hit the string and that string vibrates, and somehow that pickup captures that vibration and sends that through a cable into a thing called an amplifier, and the sound comes out. I still don't believe that it's even possible. It's still magic to me. It's like, for real. Like I've looked at schematics and I've had people obviously explain to me from A to B how it all actually works scientifically. And I'm still like, bullshit. There's a wizard in a cave who waved his wand at Les Paul and Leo Fender back 80 years ago or whatever, and said, all right, you guys have the power now to make this happen. Like how the fuck does that work? How does that work? I go like this on a piece of metal cable, and it comes out as a guitar. It's insane to me that it actually works.
Oh my gosh. I'm.
We take these things for granted.
I know.
Like a drum makes sense. There's a thing and you hit it and it makes a sound. Like guitars, to me, it's still. I can't believe that it's even real. Like how that someone sat down and figured that out. Like if I do this and make a thing, it's gonna pick up that vibration electronically. What?
That's awesome. Into that same discussion, I don't understand how helicopters work. I mean,
right?
They go around, but they just don't seem like they aerodynamically make any sense. I get a plane, but helicopters, right. I don't get.
Well, I guess aren't the rotors pushing the air down so it makes it go up? I don't know.
I mean,
what do I know?
It's a, but they move the way they move. It's just wizardry.
I feel the same about all of it, even on a plane. I understand the idea of how a plane works with jet propulsion. I understand that idea, but when I'm sitting in a plane at 38,000 feet, I'm still amazed that this. Sometimes I feel like this only works because we all believe that it works. It's like we have this hive mind that has said planes work, planes can fly, and therefore they do. Like it's crazy to me that another thing we kind of take for granted. You get in a tube that's going to fly at 600 miles an hour at 38,000 feet, and we just do it like, okay. And yet people are scared to get on a roller coaster. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, but then in those people's defense of like the roller coaster situation, have you ever seen who's doing the maintenance on a roller coaster?
This is true.
I mean,
yes.
I mean, I get on I love a good roller coaster, and I'm going to get on them. Nothing stopping me there. But I get it. I understand.
Yeah. Well, I guess. Yeah.
But planes. So I won't go in a private plane. Like I was in a couple private planes. I felt every bump. When I was in Iraq, I was in some helicopters that had some really hard landings that you could argue were like crashes. And
sure.
I was like, I'm never fucking getting in a helicopter again.
I've never been in one.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. We never had it. We never needed to be in one. And then when people started, like music related people started dying in helicopters, like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Bill Graham, I told my manager, I'm never getting in a helicopter. The only, unless there's an absolute have to. And when is there going to be an absolute have to? Like I'm going to have to get in a helicopter. So yeah, I've never, that's like one of the few things in my life I could say, like I've never experienced. I won't go on those. I go to Hawaii. I never get in a helicopter and fly around the island and look at shit. Like, no, I'm not getting in a helicopter if I don't have to be in one. And that's never going to happen.
I so respect that because I'm in the same boat. And I won't get in either those, either the private plane or the helicopter. And
I've been in private planes a few times, and I've got a really quick story for you. So this was in the late 2000s, which I mean between 2000 and 2010. I don't remember specifically which year, but VH1 used to do this thing called the Rock Honors, and it was kind of their version of the Hall of Fame. And so they would have the bands that were getting inducted, and then they would have people play to pay tribute to the band that was being inducted. So when Kiss was being inducted into the VH1 Rock Honors, they put together a super group to play before Kiss was going to play. So it was me and Rob Zombie and Tommy Lee and Slash and geez, who am I missing? Ace Frehley, which is really weird because we had Ace Frehley in the group that was paying tribute to Kiss, and Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses, and so when we were flying to Vegas because that's where this whole thing was being shot, and so they flew us on a private jet, and we get on this little jet at Van Nuys Airport, and Tommy, who's obviously flown on private jets many times in his life, because he immediately, as soon as we get up in the air, he says, "Hey, should we ask the pilot if he wants to do some tricks?" And everyone's just kind of like, okay. So he bangs on the little door, and the pilot opens the door, and Tommy's like, "Hey, man, you think we could do some tricks, like do the weightless thing and whatever?" And the pilot's like, "All right, let me call into what do you call it? The people that watch the planes on the computers, not mission control,
air traffic
control.
Yeah.
Right?" And so, because he has to call in and let him know that we're going to go off the flight plan and go out over the desert, so he could fuck around, basically. And he gets the okay. So he's like, "All right, what we're going to do?" The pilot comes on the thing. He's like, "We're going to, do a real steep climb. And then when we get to the top of the parabolic arch and go back down, you're going to feel weightless for maybe about 5 seconds." And I've known about this because they have that thing in Houston at NASA where they train the astronauts. It's called the vomit comet, because they take them up and everyone throws up. And I'm totally into this at this point. I'm like, weightless, I'm in, And so he does it. So all of a sudden we're climbing and you're thrown back in your seat. And you're going practically straight up. And you get to the top of this arch, and I had loosened. I didn't take my seatbelt off, but I loosened it a whole bunch. Suddenly, I'm floating in my seat, right? Which is amazing. Tommy Lee is not even sitting down. He's in the aisle of the plane with a vodka cranberry, and he's floating in midair, and he didn't even spill his drink. It was I would go on record as saying it's the most rock star moment I have ever seen in my life.
Wow.
It was insane. And then he starts yelling at the pirate. He's like, "Let's go upside down. Let's do barrel roll." And I'm like, all right. We did the weightless thing 4 times, and it was amazing. It was really cool. But I'm like, barrel rolls, yeah, I don't know. And then the pilot said, "We can't do that in this plane because of blah, blah, blah." It was a bunch of technical jargon that I couldn't repeat. And so we couldn't do it in that plane. And then we got back on our flight path and we headed to Vegas. And but yeah, I don't know that I've been on a private jet since. And I'm also not a big fan of those really either, which I don't know why. It's seemingly they should be safer than a giant plane with a whole bunch of people on it. But I don't know. It's weird how your brain convinces me things.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where the people the people who are paying the checks for the private jets, they don't always tell you about the fuel. You have no concern whatsoever about a Delta flight and their fuel capacity. Right. They're going to have enough fuel. I mean, there's no concern there. But there's just so many of those private planes. They're like, "Oh, we're on a quarter tank. We'll be fine. Oh, weather's coming up. Oh shit, we might not be fine. There ain't nowhere to land here and there." And then,
right. Yeah.
This is just dumb stuff. And also, my dad works for the FAA, so we have these conversations quite a few times about what crashes a lot, and it's always private planes, small planes.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a storybook of musicians, but there's even a larger book when you look into business executives and you look into people of government importance and so forth. And and I'm just like, fuck that shit. I'm not getting on a private plane. That's it.
I hear you. I'm with you.
Because commercial flights, they do crash, but not at that rate. So,
yeah, and then even actually, I can say I have been on a private plane since, but it was with Iron Maiden, and it was a 747, and Bruce Dickinson, their singer, was flying it, and we toured all over Mexico and South America for a month. And Maiden was kind enough to let Anthrax travel with them on their 747, and that was the greatest touring experience of my life as well.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I did not know they had their own 747, but if that's your private jet, fuck yeah.
They did on that tour. They don't always do, but on that whole run that they were on, they had a 747 that they basically took around the world on the whole tour. And we were lucky enough to be on that one leg for about 5 weeks in Central and South America. And it was, I mean, if there was ever a time to say that's it, it's never going to get any better than this. We're flying with Maiden on their 747, and we're playing stadiums, with not only, like, for us, having the best shows of our lives, but then we get to watch one of our favorite bands of all time in front of the best metal audiences in the world. I mean, the whole thing was just incredible. So yeah, for me, that was the best. That was the pinnacle right there.
I mean, I love hearing you say that, because as like a fan, like I look at Anthrax as like, you all are a pinnacle. You all are like, you all are gods in the world of rock, and it's to hear you kind of fanboy out over Iron Maiden. That's pretty cool, man.
Oh, come on. I mean, I mean, come on. I mean, I got, I've got Angus and Malcolm. I've got Gene Simmons from Kiss on my leg, and that's all I am is a fanboy. That's the whole reason I picked up a guitar in the first place. And I feel like if you ever lose that, you're in the wrong business. I mean, there's nothing better than getting to do this with your heroes. It's such a mind-blowing experience when you're out there sharing a stage with the guys that are the reason why you even picked up a guitar. It's insane.
So there's obviously been, various, I guess, versions of Anthrax over the years. What, or I guess not necessarily versions, but phases. What's been your favorite, like, decade? What's been your favorite time frame of Anthrax?
There was a moment in time in the 80s when it was in 1987 when we put out Among the Living, and we started that tour at a place called the Penny Arcade in Rochester, New York, which was a little club, sold out, whatever, 450, 500 people, whatever. And that was in probably May or something of 87. And by December of 87, we were touring the States, and we were selling, depending on the city, 7,000 to 15,000 tickets. And that time period, over that period from May to December of 87, when we actually essentially made it, we blew up, and we were able to kind of make our mark on the planet so deep that from that point we were able to write our own ticket and be able to do what we wanted to do for as long as we wanted to, because we connected with so many people. And that period of time, those 7 months or whatever, 8 months, whatever it was pretty amazing to be in it, because when you're in it, you don't know. You're just playing 6 nights a week and you're doing your thing. Of course, I realized the crowds were getting bigger, but essentially you're just going to work every day. It wasn't until years later where you could look back on it and go, it's pretty amazing what the fuck happened. That's insane. Yeah. Where did all those people come from?
We've tasted a lot of things here over the course of an hour and a half. What is your favorite? Oh,
my favorite is the Unpretentious rye from French Lick, Indiana.
How about that?
That is my favorite. And if I was going to pick number 2, it's this. It's the Colorado. Hey, I'm back. Look, I'm moving again.
Look at that.
And yeah, that would be number 2. And let's see if I can do my top 3. Yeah, 3. I'm gonna go
with Michter's. Okay, all right.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of that Unpretentious High Rye from French Lick. So maybe your buddy would deem me worthy of sending me a bottle of that he might have laying around somewhere.
I think we can make that happen. I think he would be on. I think he'd be honored to send you some. So
I will drink it.
Yeah. Right on, my friend. Well, I know I've kept you away from the family for a minute, drinking a little whiskey, but Scott, such a great pleasure chatting with you. You're a real whiskey nerd, and it's just great to hang out with you, man. I wish it was in person.
Oh, right on. Well, thank you. It will be, and thank you. Hey, don't hang up. Like once you turn it off, don't hang up so we could exchange information because I don't have your info.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Okay.
All right. So, Scotty and everybody, like, if you're not following him already, then you're missing out. He's a great follow on Instagram. He's not hard to find. 500,000 followers already. Help him get 600,000. So be one of those that get to that next level. But
that's how I gauge my worthiness as a human by how many followers I have. So please follow me.
Awesome, my friend. Well, cheers and be safe out there. And send Pearl my best. Tell her thanks for coming on, and thank her so much for playing at Repeal Day. Cheers.
Of course I will. Cheers, brother. Thank you, Fred.